Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness. Lovely day in the park. Had to take advantage. We're gonna just chill today and talk about something. As one of my old bosses told me whenever I was working in the commercial gym, he asked why I wasn't getting that many sales. I gave him my excuses and I said, oh, X, Y, and Z and this and that. And he listened to what I told him and he said, it's not working because you're majoring in the minors. And that is what we're going to talk about today, specifically when it comes to training. Now, of course, if you guys have not checked out my training programs already, I've got some for novices and intermediates. More may be on the way, but a lot more than just exercises on a sheet. I break down everything you need to know in detail to make serious gains for the long haul. You're going to have a template for life. We have this overarching thing where we think that complexity always has to be better, and the new flashy thing, by default, has to be something that is implemented. It's something that must be done to get the most gains possible. And the most recent iteration of this is long lengthened partials. I'm sure you guys have heard about this. This is not something that I willingly found out about. I did a very, very small amount of, not even deep research, just general searching about it. Maybe we could do a video whenever we break down and dive into the actual study. I believe the purported benefits are, what was it, 5 to 10% additional muscle growth by implementing long lengthened partials. What this really comes down to is just partial reps at the end of a set. And then Jeff Nippard made a video talking about Sam Sulek is doing lengthened partials, and this is actually supported by the hypertrophy research or whatever, right? And then, of course, two big names have done it and talked about it. Then it starts to spread like wildfire, and now this is the hot new thing on the block. This is the flavor of the month. And of course, I have gotten a lot of questions from guys saying, hey man, what are your thoughts on long lengthened partials? And how should I best implement these into my routine? And should I do them every exercise? Should I tack on an extra set of every exercise and do them only? Should I do them at the end of given sets until I hit failure? And all of these things. And it's like, listen, man, are these things going to produce a tiny amount more muscle growth? Perhaps. There's no way to guarantee that they will, even if one single study shows that they did. That does not mean it's going to be extrapolated out to every single person or that the results are even going to be able to be replicated. Keep that in mind too with these type of studies. A lot of guys now think that this is going to be the next big thing and it's going to be what transforms their gains, and it probably isn't.
Fashion blogger?
Nah, man. Nah, man. As you can see right there, I'm a huge celebrity. I get recognized everywhere I go. But ultimately, it doesn't matter if we're talking about the long lengthened partials. In the next few months, the next thing's gonna come up. Maybe it'll be short lengthened partials, or perhaps it's going to be cross-sectional myofascial release following a set, or, you know, there's all these things that come up all the time, and they get a lot of attention, and all of the fitness content creators talk about them because you have to come up with new things all the time to keep getting clicks. You're not going to be able to keep your brand alive by just talking about squatting for years and years unless you're Mark Rippetoe, I suppose. I noticed that a lot of the guys who are always obsessing over these things and always asking questions about them, which I'm glad you're asking questions, right? Like, you're trying to figure things out and you are digging beyond just the surface, I suppose, which is good. But I noticed that the guys that are always changing up their routine, and there's the new exercise that came out and they always want to throw it in, and they're just always making all these modifications and adjustments and shifts. You know, they think that all these new things that come up are going to deliver them to the promised land when you've struggled to get there for a long time. Some of you may have been lifting for a handful of years. Some of you may have been lifting for even a decade or longer, and you're still in novice purgatory. If you do not have a grasp of the basics, of the fundamentals, of the foundations of training, you're not going to be saved. And I'm not just talking about doing the barbell exercises. You know, I saw in my recent community post, people are saying like, well, we know that Revival still does overhead press. And it's funny because it's like, bro, I haven't done OHP in like over a year on any consistent basis. It's funny, you talk about things even years ago in your videos and everybody just assumes you do that forever, like you're not allowed to change anything. I'm not even talking about only having to do the barbell exercises, guys. Even though those are a cornerstone of training, I think everybody should absolutely learn the form on those and master them. And specifically because of what we're going to talk about here, you have to have a total grasp of your form to get really good at those exercises. This is why a lot of the guys that go into the gym and they hop on machines from day one, because they see pro bodybuilders do a lot of machines, they see some of this optimal content where the machine's always better, they don't ever get this down because you simply are not challenging your body sitting on a machine in the same way that you are with free weights. It's just not going to happen, no matter how much guys want to argue otherwise. Guys are like, oh, a really hard set of deep leg press is just as tough as a hard set of squats. It's like, first of all, it's not. Even if you want to debate that, you can't debate the fact that the neuromuscular coordination and the stability demands of the squats, that is much more of a challenge. That's why the hypertrophy guys love it so much, but that's also why novices need to master the free weights, like I say, because a lot of you guys don't have your basic form down. And I'll get in these conversations with dudes, and we finally get to the point where I'm like, okay, so what's your form look like? I see some form checks. You guys are doing everything wrong. Your feet are lopsided, they're angled in different directions, your knees are caving in on your squats, if you can hit parallel, which a lot of guys literally cannot do, at least in the current point. Their mobility is so bad, they can't hit parallel on squats. Let's see, you're bench pressing, you have flared elbows, you deadlift, you have a cat back. The general tempo of your exercises is really, really fast, right? You're just breezing through up and down, you're just rushing through everything. Even if your tempo's not terrible, your form deteriorates very quickly. So the first few reps look pretty good. Then you start to cut the range of motion, cut the range of motion, cut the range of motion. By the end of your set, you're doing legitimate half reps, and a lot of the time you don't even realize it. Maybe the first third of your set looks good. The second third starts to be kind of like, this is getting a little bit iffy. By the end of the set, those reps are hot garbage. But no matter how often I see this and no matter how many guys come to me for advice, over and over, it will be the guys that make these same mistakes that are always asking about the flavor of the month, the new thing. And I try to tell them, like, listen, man, your priorities are in the wrong place. Going back to the beginning of the video, you're majoring in the minors, bro. You are directing your focus into the periphery, into the stuff that might make a very small difference in the grand scheme of things, but the thing that you should be locked eyes with, you're trying to, look around it and look above it and get around it in some form. You're not going to be able to do that forever, guys. And it's crazy because so many dudes, like I was in this position too, I understand it. I used to half rep my bench press because I would gaslight myself into thinking, oh, well, I saw a YouTuber say that if you do partial reps, it works your chest better and less stress on the shoulders, even though you can intuitively figure out touching your chest stretches out your chest fibers more so. But you come up with all these rationalizations because serious lifting is hard. It hurts, especially when it comes to the lower body, which is where the vast majority of guys are struggling, if not totally avoiding. And then they find me and they start doing squats and deadlifts for the first time, and it looks like a baby deer. But here's the craziest part, because a lot of these guys are still consistent in the gym. You hear all the time, the name of the game is consistency, and that is true. But consistency means nothing if it is not being applied properly. So I talk to a lot of dudes who've been in the gym for a long time, and they go every week. They don't miss workouts, or they rarely miss workouts. They're in the gym 5, 6, God forbid, 7 days a week, always in there. They're putting in the hours. They are clocking in all the time. They're making an effort to get there. Like, you're doing the work on paper. The problem is the work you're doing is very low quality work. And a lot of the time, the information that you've been given, or at least the information that you're focusing on, it is misdirected. And this is exactly how you get dudes who've been in the gym for a very short amount of time, and they're making better gains than some of you guys who've been in the gym for years. And of course, this comes into genetics as well. As an online coach, I talk to a lot of dudes who, they do have below average genetics, like it becomes pretty apparent. You can't really go into this conversation though, because you can't change your genetics. You can only work with what you have, right? But that just hammers home the point that you do need to get this stuff buttoned up. But an example I like to use are high school kids, namely in general weight rooms. They're doing a lot of things that are considered suboptimal. They're doing a lot of barbell exercises that are not stable enough for hypertrophy. They might even be rushing through the repetitions a little bit. They're not always using perfect control. They might even be ego lifting. When it comes to eating, they're probably adding more body fat than they need to, right? They're doing all these things that we make videos on telling you guys to correct. But have you noticed those kids make gains in almost every conceivable scenario? Even if they're doing a lot of things suboptimally, they're still making noticeable progress. They're getting bigger, they're getting stronger, and they do it reliably for a number of years. And sometimes it's just good enough. And I'll tell you what, good enough is all you need in a lot of cases, guys. I go in on the dudes that call themselves bodybuilders on here because they're not. They have never competed. They will never compete. They have no intention to. And that's totally fine. But this entire LARPing complex of, oh, I'm a bodybuilder just because I go to the gym. Just because you go to the gym does not make you a bodybuilder. Just because you go to the gym does not make you an athlete. I don't care whatever, oh, the dictionary says that a bodybuilder is one who builds muscle. An athlete is one who is proficient in exercise. Right, so by your logic, the 80-year-old grandma doing her physical therapy exercises is an athlete because she's proficient in them. You guys don't even see the logic of it. You just want a term to call yourselves because it gives you a nice ego boost. I'm going off track now, but you get what I'm saying. You guys are general dudes who want to look better for your own self-confidence, to get better with women, all these other things that tie into it. You don't have to obsess over the new studies and the absolute pinnacle of perfect, smooth, controlled form. I mean, even then, man, a lot of bodybuilders use sloppy form on a number of their exercises. I know we get into the muddy waters here of, okay, the genetics and the PEDs. Of course, that has a lot to do with it. But going back to the high school example, even a lot of general, just high school age kids, even dudes in their young 20s, right? Frat bros, younger guys going out on the weekends, doing bro splits, which are widely still considered to be suboptimal. They're not doing the perfect exercise selection, all this other stuff. A lot of these guys that are in the suboptimal conditions, they're still making reliable progress because they're doing just enough. They have the basics down to a level to where it is enough to keep seeing good progress. It might not be perfect, but it is going to work. I think a lot of you guys are obsessed with trying to be perfect in this pursuit when you don't have the foundation laid yet. A lot of you guys are basically trying to put the star on top of the Christmas tree. You haven't even found the tree. Like, you've got that old rickety-ass tree from Charlie Brown in your living room. You don't water it properly. It doesn't have a stable base. It falls over all the time. That's what this is. It's too close to the outlet. It might catch on fire. The stuff that you learn when you're mastering the barbells, that's what's going to carry you. You need to master your breathing, your tempo, your kinesthetic awareness, full body control, being able to judge your form even if you're not able to look in a mirror. And by the way, guys, don't start craning your neck back and forth with heavy weight in your hands or on your back. Bad idea. Just record your sets. But the ability to react to your body's real-time feedback, there are so many skills that you should master whenever you're a novice that do not get mastered. They're missing a whole half of the pie. They can tell you the names of the muscles and the anatomy and the new theories and the programming that's optimal and the recovery times and all this other stuff. We know that we need 48 to 72 hours, this and that. So a lot of people have the information and they're in tune when it comes to the books. But when it comes to the iron itself, when the rubber meets the road in the gym, in the weight room, they are completely lost. And you can even extrapolate this farther out into volume because guys are obsessed with, oh, well, I want to make sure I'm doing the optimal volumes possible. And I've talked before about the 10 to 20 range. I'm not a fan of that recommendation because it's far too vague. You can check the video in the top corner, click on the I. I will link you to that one. It's basically like a speed limit, okay? It's like, okay, the speed limit in this area is 25 to 50. Of course, everybody's gonna push 50 because that is the end of the range. Everybody automatically assumes that the bigger number in anything is better, or at the very least, they're going to push the bigger number that they're given. A lot of you guys as well are focused on the quantity of your sets over the quality. And this is something I stress to a lot of the guys that I coach now because they send me their routine almost every single time, besides a few guys that are on the more bare bones programs. The vast majority of guys I talk to, they send me their routines and they're doing what I would consider too much. If not too much, they need to be doing nothing more than they currently are, but they always want to add something. Like we talked about, oh, this new exercise I saw, I want to add this here, I want to plug this in here. It's just endless ways to keep tacking on more volume to your routine because you guys have been disillusioned by the volume dudes, the high volume cells who act like that's going to magically transform your gains. Volume doesn't mean anything if your form and intensity are not there. We just talked about the form a while ago, but when it comes to the intensity too, I notice a lot of dudes, you guys don't push yourself as hard as you think. And it's a spectrum because there's a line between hitting, you know, 2 RIR, but it's a soft 2 RIR, like, okay, you could have done more, and then legitimate 1 or 2 RIR as in, okay, that last rep was a struggle, but you racked it, live to fight another day, that makes sense. But the spectrum, man, some guys, you can't stop them from killing themselves in the gym. They are always going to push everything to death, struggle, failure, and those guys tend to want to do high volume as well. They tend to combine these things. That's one of the good things that Mike Mentzer has brought to this space, I would say. He's convinced, and that's what it takes. It takes a guy who competed in the Olympia with huge biceps to get people to listen. But he convinced a lot of people that you don't need these crazy volumes to see progress, and he's totally correct on that. It's about the intensity. If you are doing sufficient intensity, you do not need as much volume as you've been led to believe by a lot of people in this space. It really comes down to, again, the fundamentals, progressive overload. You get stronger in some capacity. You have a relatively low need for volume as long as you're making consistent progress in some form. If your form is linear, if it is the same, you can have tiny deviations as the set gets very difficult. But if your reps are looking similar, if they are textbook, if it's running through the playhead of your video and every rep is the same, it's hard to tell the difference when you scroll through, that's what you want. You can see the degradation of your reps, sometimes even on a single rep basis, just because you guys are lifting weights you can't control, but your ego's too proud to reduce them. If you're rushing through them, you're not staying tight. That also throws your form off. You're trying to impress people nearby. You know, there's a lot of reasons that guys will not have good form, let alone never having even mastered it though to begin with. I don't care if we're talking about a simple 30-second tutorial, if we're talking about a 30-minute video, when somebody really breaks down the form into minute little details, it doesn't matter. You have not actually done it yourself. There are a lot of keyboard jockeys in this space. There are a lot of experts in name only. They're basically experts in their own head. They've read a lot of stuff and they have parroted a lot of stuff, but their actual application of the things that they have read and memorized and parroted, it doesn't add up and it does not play out. And it's funny too, because a lot of people in this space bash Mark Rippetoe, and he's earned some of that criticism for sure. He tends to be a little bit too much of a stubborn old head on some topics. But I'll tell you what, man, a lot of you guys would benefit from reading Basic Starting Strength. I know it's not optimal for hypertrophy and I don't want a low bar squat and all this other stuff. Okay, fine, man, then high bar squat, whatever. But what I'm saying is you need to get the fundamentals down. You need to understand your own body mechanics on these exercises. You need to become a master of your own movement. And starting strength, for any of the flaws that it has, it is very good when it comes to that. I hate to say it, man, but a lot of you guys have the kinesthetic awareness of baby deer. And like I said, this does not only apply to the big barbell exercises. Even if you're doing things like a lat pull down, like a hack squat, like any other type of machine, having full kinesthetic awareness and understanding your body's movement and being totally in tune with these type of things, it only helps you no matter what you're doing. Even if you're doing isolation stuff like a lateral raise or a curl, knowing this information helps you all the time. Keeping your core braced, firmly planting your feet, understanding your back angle, your elbow positioning, just getting a better overall gauge of your tempo when all these variables are buttoned up. You're going to become much better at these things, as opposed to, oh, well, I watched a few tutorials and I read all these papers and I went to the gym and then you send me your video and your reps look like a floppy fish. And it is Lent, so I'm gonna have to take you to the fish fry, bro.
Are you GoProing?
Not GoPro, just iPhone, but yeah, recording.
Oh, what are you recording?
YouTube video, man. This kid just rode by on a bike and was like, GoProing? I was like, nah, I'm on my iPhone, buddy. But I guess this is what you ask for whenever you go record in a public place. See, this is why I don't record outside a whole lot, at least not during busy hours. You know, I don't mind people. I get it, like I appreciate it, but you know, people, I don't know, I'm not a huge people person, but I think I'm starting to repeat myself here. I hope this video has made some sense, but that's the take-home point, guys. A lot of you are majoring in the minors. You are very into the minutia, the bells and whistles, the smoke and mirrors, the pixie dust, the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae, so to speak. But the foundational ingredients, and speaking of that, this doesn't even go into nutrition. A lot of you guys are desolate in terms of your nutritional knowledge. Man, some of the stuff you guys send me, here's my MyFitnessPal, bro. I look at the macros, I'm like, okay. I look at the actual foods. Oh man, it's a mess. A lot of you guys are eating a lot of junk food and you don't realize that you are. I'm gonna do a whole food guide coming up. I'm gonna release it eventually. I'm gonna have all kinds of references, data, links, everything. Because a lot of you guys have very, very poor nutrition knowledge too. But take home point, master the basics. They're never going to fail you and they carry over into everything else. But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the programs down below. Start making more gains in way less time than you thought you needed. If you want to get in contact with me, the best way is via Patreon, one-on-one DM. You can also join our Discord server there. Hundreds of active members every day. and use my links down below to save money on some great products and services. And I will catch you guys next time.